Hi guys, it's Billy Joe, the stressed mess. Today's video is going to be on telling the difference between an overt and a covert narcissist, or an overt, covert manipulator, controller. Everybody knows, like, I will do the overt part first because it's the most classic one. It's what everybody knows. It's that the narcissist, it's the big ego, it's the big loud personality, it's the condescending tone, it's the power trip, it's the, everybody should bow down to me kind of personality. Always flaunting his money or flaunting whatever. It's the person with, short man's disease or whatever. It's that really pompous ego. That's an overt narcissist. An overt controller or manipulator is that abusive person, the one that you can help. Everybody knows that this person is an ass and he treats, and I'm saying he, this goes for she too. It's just easier because I'm talking about the opposite of my sex. So, but women can have the same narcissistic personalities, the same manipulative personality. So please don't think this video is geared only towards men. The personality is what it is. The overt manipulator is the one whoever's closest to them, they shrink away, they kind of stay to themselves, they don't like to let anybody close to them. They don't want anybody to know what's going on. You can kind of tell that they are kind of a little fearful, or just kind of shut off, okay? That's the overt part. That's not, if you're in that relationship, that's not hard for you to pinpoint or label. I want to talk about the covert part and the difference between the covert narcissist and the covert manipulator. So the covert narcissist is somebody that has a really big ego and also tends to have a low self-esteem and wants to be the hero, thinks he's the hero, or she. Again, I'm going to probably use the he a lot only because it's kind of my situation, but this goes for women as well as I'm talking. So if a covert narcissist a lot of times is very well spoken, very charismatic, charming, friendly. People like to be around this kind of a person. They have a certain level of intelligence. What else? They're very likable. A lot of times, I want to say, I have found they're kind of an introverted personality, which is kind of what makes them a little more of a covert situation happening. A covert manipulator, or let's just go back to the covert narcissist. The covert narcissist, you probably will never know unless you're in that situation, but there are ways that you can kind of tell if somebody is being a covert narcissist, and it's kind of like being subtly condescending to somebody. It's like subtly insulting you. What kind of example can I use? Okay, so let's just say you're in a conversation, and there's a couple of people in the conversation, like 5 or 6 people having a conversation, all chit-chatting, giving their opinion, giving stories, whatever, giving some insight, and everybody else is having their, having their opinion or whatever. But then this person, whether it's to the significant other or to anybody else in the conversation, will take what you've said and say the exact same thing in a slightly different way, and then add words like, well, even more than that, and then kind of reiterate what you just said like almost exactly what you just said, but make it seem like it was their thought and that they gave it some more insight or depth, okay? They will tend to complain a lot about things that they think they could be doing better anywhere, okay? So, I mean, by that I mean, they'll be real charming and everything to your face, but then behind closed doors, they're complaining about someone at their job who's like not smart enough to kind of conversate with them, or has a job title that covert narcissist doesn't think belongs to them, or, you know, that they should have that role. And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but there's a little bit of an opinion about themselves or himself that he thinks he could be running the show, you know, fresh out of school, no experience, I could do a better job. And when you know there's certain aspects of a personality that they wouldn't fit into that job. Maybe the person is not a people person trying to have a people person job and just has this idea about themselves that, you know, I'm just kind of better than most people, but won't ever say it like in a public setting. So let me see how else. So they might comment on your appearance. They, you know, a lot of times a covert narcissist is still pretty in really good shape or fit or whatever. And maybe you haven't held up so well, like myself. And so they'll make little comments about, you know, should you be eating that, or watching your diet for you, or, and I'm not saying, I'm saying you got to kind of put it together, because like if I'm not watching my diet, I don't need you to watch it for me. Just saying. But it goes along with making comments about your appearance. Well, like people think I'm so young because I'm so skinny. People think you're older because you need to lose weight. Kind of things like that. And it's, again, it's not like a onesie twosie thing. It's kind of like a compilation of critiques and comments that kind of makes, you know, elevates them and kind of puts you down a little bit, but in a covert way. It's very covertly condescending or covertly insulting. And it's like, it's not, like I said, it's not a one-off. It's kind of like a habit. The covert manipulator, the covert controller, you won't be afraid of them physically or verbally. You know, you won't be afraid of the person in the sense where you're like, you know, fearful, okay? It's more of, they have a way of manipulating you to do what they want you to do by either making you feel guilty, or knowing, like in my personal experience that I'm talking about, I come from a very violent background. I do not like to fight. I don't like to argue. So I'll do whatever I can to keep peace. So, you know, if something's been bothering me, he did something wrong, I'll tell him about it, and he'll either apologize or not apologize, and I kind of have to live with whatever I get, right? But if he doesn't acknowledge it or doesn't apologize about it, I just move on, because I'm not willing to fight about it until I get what I want. And so he knows that, and so a lot of times, a lot of stuff just goes unchecked. And he just figures if he jokes with me and clowns around and whatever, you know, everything will be okay. And, you know, my mother always says that, like, the situation that I'm in is kind of my fault. And it kind of is. And it is kind of my fault, because I just don't like to argue. I don't nitpick and nag. I just feel like I tell you, and if you know, you pick the relationship you want with me. You either want a good one or you want one that's not good. So At this point though, if you watch my last video, I've gotten to the point where I'm done. Like, I'm done. So I'm tired of the denial. I'm tired of the lying. I'm tired of the blame. I'm tired of, you know, that subtle manipulation. I'm just tired of all of it. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of not being happy, and I'm done. And I don't think he quite understands, even though I've said it multiple times, like, all that you're apologizing for and all that stuff doesn't change anything for me. Like, the switch isn't going to turn back on. I'm done. But he hasn't worn a wedding ring in decades, and now he's got a band on. And he's overly attentive. Like, you know, I'm trying to use the other bathroom for privacy. He's like, are you okay? Do you okay? Do you need me to get anything? Do you need this? You know, I sneeze. And it's like, oh, are you okay? Do you need this? I'm like, I sneeze, for crying out loud. Like, just back off and leave me alone. He's trying to, like, you know, hug and kiss me. And I'm just like, no. And I get the sighing and the tutting and the slamming. I got treated to a nice little slam fest today because I'm not giving him what he wants. And so, you know, and normally I would just kind of blow it off, but we've gotten to the point where these things are not blow offable. Like, this stuff is major. And so it's kind of like, I want you to understand and see the signs of the covert part, because if you don't catch it early, you might stay in a relationship that will never get fixed. There's a possibility that the person could get help and learn to change different behaviors, but if you don't say anything about it, they're certainly not going to admit it about themselves. So it has to be something that you, as a man or woman, need to start to notice and say, no, nope, you got to kind of stop the behavior before it goes too far, or you find yourself 30 years in with children and grandchildren and completely miserable and kind of feel trapped. So, you know, like I've told him quite a few times now in the past week, whatever you're saying, it's kind of only making it worse. He thinks by, like, trying to explain away with whatever excuses he has for doing certain things, that it's going to just, well, since he apologized, we're good. And I'm like, nope, doesn't change anything for me. And the disappointment, the letdown is like he's hearing it for the first time. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I told you. So you guys gotta, hopefully what I'm going through, if my kids see this, they're gonna hate me for it because they don't see it. And so it's almost worse for somebody. I don't want to compare levels of victimhood. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is it's kind of worse in the sense that somebody who's suffering from an overt person, people know about it and you tend to get more support. But with a covert person, you're kind of the only one who sees it, and you're alone a lot of times, unless you have people that have been close to you for a while and have seen it for a while. You'll get the, you know, the couple of people that are closest to you will be able to support you. But on a grander scheme, it's not something that's spoken about a lot. At least I don't think that it is. And pardon me, as an adrenal person with having an adrenal problem, it needs to be, this is like the source of most of the majority of my adrenal failure is just dealing with that constant covert narcissism and covert manipulation, and that's just nothing ever getting dealt with. So I gotta learn to try and keep these short, but there's so much I want to tell you guys, and there's so much to say. Hopefully this helps somebody, and hopefully I catch it early on and you're not at the stage that I am, because it's quite unpleasant. But you can always ask questions. I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I'm just somebody like you, kind of going through it and kind of seeing it from the other side, or from it, like, you know, from the epiphany, an epiphany, like a clarity of mind to understand what the hell's going on here. because growing up, I come from a very violent home. I understand the violent part of it, but I'm not actually, haven't been able to put into words what I've been going through. Because like I said, you're kind of alone. People don't really believe it unless, you know, you record a person and say, I got him on tape. Like, you can listen to it. But, so I'm finally able to kind of wrap my head around it and put it into words, and hopefully this helps you. So please, you know, share it with somebody. If you know somebody who might be suffering like this, share it with them, because they need help, okay? So be a blessing to somebody, support somebody, or just be a blessing to yourself and make a decision that might be tough. And I hope this helps you guys.